So some people do power rankings. They do like their top 10 NFL teams every week. And I'm not into that. I find issue with that because, for example, the Chargers, in a lot of people's minds, were the number 1, number 3, number 4 team in a lot of power rankings at the end of last year's season. They didn't even make the playoffs. So having the top 10 best teams in the NFL, that's great, but it's meaningless if they don't make the playoffs. So what I do is the Deadly Dozen. I predict my 12 playoff teams after every single week, every Wednesday. There are 6 AFC teams and 6 NFC teams. I want to start in the AFC. This is the Deadly Dozen. So in the AFC, I think the Jaguars are going to win the AFC South. They have an unbelievable roster. They have a defense. They have a coach. They have a great offensive line. But the difference for the Jaguars, the reason why the Jaguars could even be the first seed in the AFC is because of their quarterback, Blake Bortles. He has elevated his play. We're 2 weeks in. But if he keeps it up, the Jaguars are a Super Bowl team. They might even be able to beat a team like the Rams or God, can you imagine that matchup, the Rams and the Jaguars in the Super Bowl? I would love that. That'd be a game for the ages. I believe the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. It's very simple. It's Patrick Mahomes and all his incredible athletic friends. Patrick Mahomes is just an incredible talent. It's already paid off. The Chiefs took a chance, got rid of Alex Smith, committed to Patrick Mahomes, and it's already paid off. Patrick Mahomes puts the Kansas City Chiefs over the top. They're going to win their division, make the playoffs. The Patriots are going to win the AFC East. This is actually the one other than the AFC North, I have no idea. The Dolphins are really going to push the New England Patriots. And it's Brady Belichick. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't know, man. I have no idea. They lost one game. It's not great. But they're going to be okay. Now, one thing I want to point out with the Patriots, they just added Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is an electric wide receiver from the Cleveland Browns. Now, he has a ton of off-the-field issues. I don't know that it's going to work out. I hope it does for him as a person. But if Josh Gordon can get going with the Patriots and stay on track off the field, oh my goodness. Tom Brady to Josh Gordon would be terrifying. It would be fantastic. And the Patriots would win their division if Josh Gordon plays at a really high level. The problem is we've never actually seen him consistently play at a high level because of all his off-the-field issues. Now, the AFC North is completely a toss-up. I don't really know, but I do believe first in the Bengals. I predict right now the Bengals are going to win the AFC North. Forget all the years past. If you forget what's happened in the past and look at just this year, you would say, wow, the Bengals are playing incredible football. They're playing great all around. Their offense is fantastic. Their defense looks great. Their special teams is great. Every phase of the football game is going really, really well for the Bengals. Now, Andy Dalton is the key to this offense. Every quarterback needs to be, if you're going to make the playoffs, you got to have a good quarterback. But Andy Dalton is looking a little bit different this year. He's using play action really well. The Bengals are running the ball really well, but Andy Dalton just looks more comfortable. He's a little bit ahead. I think it's because all his weapons are healthy. But if Andy Dalton keeps playing at a high level, the Bengals are a playoff team and they will win the AFC North. Now, in the wild card, I have first the Dolphins. The Dolphins are for sure, I think they're a playoff team. They might even win their division. Their defense is playing great. They're tied for first with the most interceptions in the NFL. The Dolphins have gotten 5 interceptions from other teams. In 2 weeks, the Dolphins have picked off 5 passes. Now, their offensive line is solid. The coach is solid for the Dolphins. And Ryan Tannehill, the Miami Dolphins quarterback, is making just great decisions. That is why I buy the Dolphins. The coach, quarterback, offensive line, defense, but again, the quarterback is the main thing. Ryan Tannehill is making great decisions. He's not a wild, flashy quarterback, but he's really doing a good job, and I think the Dolphins are a playoff team. The Chargers are my final wildcard team. Dude, I have no idea who's going to get the final wildcard spot in the AFC. It's a mess. The AFC, after the first 5 teams, it careens down into the depths of horribleness. Now, I think the Chargers right now are the favorite. They're the best, most talented team that could get the final last wildcard spot. The problem is they're 1-1, and the Chargers are going to start 1-2. They're going to lose to the Rams on Sunday. I think they'll be okay. In October, the Chargers are going to get Joey Bosa back. He's their fantastic defensive end. And coming up, the Chargers are going to play the Titans, the Seahawks, the Raiders twice, the Cardinals, the Broncos twice. I believe the Chargers are going to figure it out. It's just going to take them a little bit of time. Now, the one team I left out of the playoffs in the AFC is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room is imploding. Le'Veon Bell's gone. Guys are calling him out. Antonio Brown's not showing up to the practice facility on Monday. He said a bunch of weird stuff on Twitter, said, trade me and find out, when tempted, and said he's not as great as he thinks he is. And Big Ben is hit or miss. So right now, the Steelers look like they are not a playoff team. They look like they're imploding. And I think it's very possible that finally the loosey-goose approach that Mike Tomlin has, that, not buttoned up, that a lot of kind of a mess that Mike Tomlin has, it's finally catching up to Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, in the NFC, the 6 teams I predict making the playoffs in the NFC, first, it starts with the Rams. The Rams are the best team in the NFL. They're going to win the NFC West. It's very, very simple. They had an average game against the Cardinals on Sunday. They won 34-0. They have stars everywhere. I'm not sure that the Rams have a weakness. If they do have a weakness, it's actually their defensive ends. Now, I got to say, very personally, my buddy Samson Ebicom, I played with him in high school. He plays defensive end for the Rams. I think if that's their weakest link, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. They're fantastic. Oh, my goodness. Now, the Eagles in the NFC East are going to win their division. Carson Wentz is coming back. And I still think they have the second best roster in football. Their defense struggled last week against Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's just unbelievable. I don't know what's going on with him. But regardless, they have a really great defense, a good coach. Carson Wentz is coming back, a great offensive line. The Eagles have everything. They're going to win the NFC East. Now, the Falcons are going to win the NFC South. They played the Panthers, and I was surprised at how well they played. They were missing their starting running back, and despite all of that, playing the Panthers, who have a great run defense, the Falcons ran for 170 yards. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone, which is a huge storyline. The big thing with the Falcons is everyone says they struggle in the red zone. They can't get the ball. They can't score when they're in the red zone. Well, they were 4 for 4 last week. It's very possible that week 1 was a fluke, and I think the Falcons have finally buttoned it up, and they're ready to go. Matt Ryan was fantastic. There's a huge game on Sunday between the Falcons and the Saints coming up in week 3, and I cannot wait to watch. Falcons-Saints, week 3, it's going to be the best game of the week. I think the Vikings are going to win the NFC North. I know they didn't beat the Packers. They tied the Packers on Sunday, but regardless, the Vikings are going to win more games than the Packers. They're a better roster. Kirk Cousins is playing out of his mind. He's great. They brought in Dan Bailey, the kicker from the Cowboys, the former Cowboy kicker. Dan Bailey elevates the team. The Vikings had a really great week. They're a great roster. They got even better by adding Dan Bailey. I believe the Vikings are going to win the NFC North, make the playoffs. Now, in the wild card, the first team left, of course, it's the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is great. As long as he stays healthy, the Packers are a wild card team at the very least. They could win their division, depending on the head-to-head matchup between the Vikings and the Packers down the road. The last wild card spot in the NFC, I'm giving to the Saints. It was controversial. I didn't know who to put in there. It was either the Saints or the Buccaneers. I trust Drew Brees more than I trust Ryan Fitzpatrick. I picked the Saints. I'm betting on Drew Brees to take his team to the playoffs. Now, week 3 is one of the biggest games of the entire season so far. Saints, Falcons, I alluded to it earlier. That's going to have a huge, huge impact on both the Falcons season and the Saints season. The Falcons are 1-1. The Saints are 1-1. It's going to be really important. They don't want to go 1-2. So that week 3 game between the Falcons and the Saints is a massive, massive matchup. Again, this has been the Deadly Dozen. There's 12 teams I predict making the playoffs. In the AFC, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Bengals are going to win their division. The 2 wildcard teams in the AFC are the Dolphins and the Chargers. In the NFC, the Rams, the Eagles, the Falcons, and the Vikings will win their divisions. And the wildcard teams will be the Saints and the Packers.